So for me, I started off in sports and kind of knew I wanted to make movies, but really didn't know how to get into that. So I went to school, um, took film school at the University of Minnesota. After that, I found myself kind of trying to figure out what I wanted to do. During that time period, I was trying out for a bunch of teams and really trying to come to terms with the end of sports and becoming an adult. As I tell people, adulting was a very difficult time for me. And a good friend of mine had read some of my writing and was like, let's shoot something. Let's go to California. Let's shoot something. And I wouldn't go. And I stayed and wound up taking a job at a small production company that did commercials and began writing copy for them. So I started off really working for somebody else and just writing commercials, right? We wrote jingles, we wrote commercials. And then that same friend who went to LA contacted me again and introduced me to a professional football player who offered me a chance to make a film in Los Angeles. I moved to Los Angeles to make this film, and then the football player died. And when he died, it kind of left me a single dad, kind of in a situation. And so for me, the most important thing was to get a job. So I took a job in a grocery store, being a cashier. And I tell people that it was one of the best jobs I'd ever done because I was able to meet lots of people, and I didn't have to really use any of my creative juices during the work hours. And then during the daytime, um, I took an internship at 20th Century Fox. So I interned for them for a year. After interning for a year, which basically meant I moved boxes from office to office, there was a job opportunity and I went and took that job. So I stayed there at 20th Century Fox for 10 years and worked my way up to a manager and director of network engineering and operations. And for my particular part, it really had to do with post production. And often as an artist, I will talk a lot about finishing. And the reason why I do is because that's the most difficult part of everything that we do is to finish the idea, to finish the task, to finish the mission, right? And so I realized that for a lot of filmmakers, the difficulty was really finishing the films they had shot. And so I began to look at my knowledge from Fox and kind of bring that into the creative things I would do. Eventually, I got to make my first film, which was a 6-minute short, and the short did really well. We wound up being in probably 20 or 30 film festivals. And that let me at least know that, like, I could actually do the job, which I think for all of us, that's the question, in the back of your head is like, okay, after I finish school, after I do all these things, and I'm given that opportunity, will I be able to be successful, right? So then I was still at Fox and really afraid to kind of risk my livelihood for the art. And I had a chance to make a documentary about Black cowboys in Compton. And so I made that documentary, and that would have been 2004. That was like my first feature film. And coming out of that, we did 100 plus festivals, and it pretty much changed my trajectory in terms of like my own personal outlook as an artist, but also how people viewed me as an artist as well. And so after that, I went out and made another film called Fatherhood 101. And that was my first feature film that I shot in Cleveland, Ohio. And that really showed me the value of having fathers in the home, the value of workforce development, the value of gainful employment, right? So in the back of my mind, I began to think about those things as I made my art. Then I made another film here called Unspeakable, and that was like my first narrative film, and the first time I got to shoot, something I had written, and that did really well. And so I found myself being offered jobs, right? So that became like the first time where it's like, okay, I can't stay at Fox. I'm going to need to kind of figure out what I'm going to do. And so I kind of left Fox and started my own company, which is basically a post-production facility. We had a 25,000 square foot post-production facility with a soundstage, mixing room, edit bays, really focused on finishing people's content. I ran that company for about 5.5 years, 6 years. And at the same time, we were making things for people. We were making promotional content. We were partnering on films and finishing films. So I got to experience more of the industry, particularly from the economic side of selling content and garnering deals. Coming out of that, I got my first development deal as a writer, which basically I always attribute the school's campus to a development deal, because what it does is it allows an artist to be in a space where they can create and incubate their ideas, and at the same time they get paid for that. So I had that deal for probably about 4 or 5 years, and never got to even make a film with them, which is probably the only disappointing part about it. Which that's kind of the studio system. So when you move from independent to studio, those are the things that kind of happen that I won't say derail your career, but show you kind of how the business works versus the independent world where you get to make whatever you want. Within that same time period, Tyrese Gibson was one of my clients, and he came in and asked if I would help him with some production ideas. So I began to just kind of help him organize his ideas, and then kind of travel with him to figure out what we were going to make. That eventually turned into me being really in charge of the entertainment branch of his company and making tons of content with them. I mean, we made TV shows, we made films, we made short films, we did commercials. I mean, it was really as an artist, the first time that I kind of had the freedom to, for the most part, make whatever I could think of. And so I did that for about 5 years. And as you can see, there's a pattern to me in 5 years. And that generally it takes me about 5 years to figure out what is my personal plan and what is my next move, and to really chart it out. So after that, I had an opportunity to really open my own production company. So I kind of went after that. And while doing that, we were shooting different content around the country, and often we would come home to Cleveland and try to make something. And we were making a documentary on Martin Luther King, and lots of people were trying to get jobs, and they kept asking me about jobs. They kept asking me, and finally, I began to realize that the real disconnect was on-set hours. That you could have all the ideas in the world, but if you don't actually get the on-set experience, it's difficult for you to really understand how sets operate, to really understand the industry, its terminology, because you're going to go a long time before you get to make your own content. And so one Christmas break, I just started writing, curriculums, and that turned into textbooks. And so I found myself um, feeling the need to give back. And so the way that I can give back, I'm an artist, is really to teach my trade. And so we began to really look at not only do we make films, but we create pathways to on-the-job training. We create pathways to portfolios that help high school students get into college. We create pathways for internships. Trying to really allow the people around us to experience the industry in the safest manner, right? Meaning that the employer, it has the least amount of risk, and the employee has the least amount of risk. That's why I always recommend internships and on-the-job training, because you actually have the freedom to learn and experience multiple departments. But once they hire you, you kind of are stuck in whatever department they put you in, which if that's the department you want to be in, that's good. But if it's not, then you're going to have to ladder system out of there. So that period in the beginning, when you're coming out of school and you're kind of shopping around, figuring out what you want to do, is also probably the best time as an artist, because you actually get to figure out what you want to do. So once we started doing that, we began to look at how do we, obviously I'm from Cleveland. I grew up on 147th and Kinsman, and I feel a connection to Clevelanders, particularly the blue collar element that our families come from, the Midwest values, things like that. So we know we're hard workers. We know how to work with our hands. We know we're really creative, right? So we began to just slowly migrate back here, and that started about 2 years ago, 2.5, somewhere in there. where in the beginning I was just coming out every month for like a couple weeks, and that turned into land development and really, acquiring some land and working on a $45 million studio build. And we've raised 35 million, and we're in the process of trying to close on that. So everything that is um, important to me as an artist kind of rests on this belief that I can pass that on to a next generation of artists, as well as I can introduce people who may not believe that they're even artistically inclined to be in the film industry, but they do a practical trade or some form of general construction that can apply to our industry. And so that's what kind of got me here. Since then, we have a three-picture deal with Samuel Goldwyn Films, which is really an interesting conundrum to be back in the studio system and kind of convincing them that um, Cleveland is a viable place to make films. And a lot of that rests on the concern of the amount of crew and labor that we have in the region. And so the reason why I feel like uh, schools such as OMS are so important is that the state of Ohio, in terms of the IATA union, has 350 members, right? So if you look at that based upon one film, all right, we were in pre-production at the same time that LeBron was shooting his film here, and we couldn't get any crew because one film would easily use 200 to 300 people. It could easily use 600 carpenters on a TV show. So the access and the opportunity for students right now, particularly in the below the line trades, the support departments, sound, lighting, camera support, crafty. These are editorial, audio mixing, production audio. Like, these are serious positions that uh, do not have a lot of competition in this region for new hires. Now you still have to again get those onset hours. You have to get those independent hours before you can get onto a studio film, because a studio film is a union film. But the opportunity is there because there's a great need within the union system for labor. And so we feel, both artistically and philanthropically, that we can help with that. I can't say that I can cure it, but I'm open to being a vessel that passes information, that passes opportunity, that champions young people and people who are in career changing choices to get a chance in the film industry. Currently, this year we've made, so in my tenure, I've probably made 50 to 100 music videos from a producing standpoint. I've probably done 50 commercials, of which 20 of them I probably directed. In terms of reality TV content, I've shot well over 20 or 30 TV pilots, as well as all kinds of snackable content. Over the past year and a half in Cleveland, we've done a decent amount of the political campaigns you see on TV and online. We've done multiple foundation documentaries. Currently, we're in post production on Our Watch, which is a one woman show taken from a actual play called Death in the City, which is about the death of Bruce Clunder, the activist. We are finishing up another project, which is called Listen, which is a documentary on Holocaust survivors and them being interviewed by high school ninth graders from South Central LA, discussing the impact of hate rhetoric and propaganda. And then obviously we're doing some narrative projects as well. So creatively, we've had a pretty fruitful year. We do a lot of work with, Fred Ward. We do a lot of work with the city of Cleveland. So I feel like we're slowly learning the region and creating opportunity.
Marquette, can I jump in for a quick second?
Jump all the way.
All right, we do have students here from all of our campuses as well, and we selfishly love that you're in Cleveland. But can you talk a little bit about maybe, some of the places they can be looking for, or ways maybe that's not specific to Cleveland, of how they can kind of start getting that? I know that you're not familiar, obviously, with all
No,
the areas, but just generally kind of a pathway for them.
Well, technically, I'm actually pretty familiar, to be truthful with you.
Oh, good.
So let's start with Columbus. You have a really great film commission. Most of the films that are shot there are below $10 million, which means they have an incredible need for cost-effective labor. So the first thing I would advise any student is to intern, right? Intern at camera house, rental houses, intern at grip and electric places, intern at studios that are making content, intern at marketing agencies, intern at anybody that is doing what you like to do. Uh, Even your local news agencies, PBS, even your college stations. And the reason why I say intern first is the misconception is that when you're an intern, you're schlepping around grabbing coffee. That's not really how it works in our industry. It is a way for both parties to get to know each other, and what we're looking for is your passion. You see, it's not about will you take a check. It's about how passionate are you to work in this industry. And the reason why you have to have passion is the days are really long. We put in 12 to 14-hour days. If you're the director, you're putting in a 16-hour day. So you have to be passionate about what we do. Sometimes the weather isn't always right. Sometimes the client, the people, the subjects aren't always happy. So it is something that you really must want to do. And for you as the intern, it allows you to see what type of company culture you will be going into, right? When it comes to film production, almost every intern gets hired as a PA starting out, which is what you hope to do. The entry level position on any set is going to be a production assistant. And if you're coming out of these programs, you will have the ability to be a PA if you have utilized your time while on campus to do off-hour shooting, to really understand the craft. You possibly could get into a department to support. If you're focused on production sound or lighting, there's definitely going to be opportunity for you in that particular region. Cincinnati, you shoot a lot of really nice films with good budgets. I would assume that the budget's around 25 million and below. So same thing, right? You want to engage with your film commission. And when I talk about engaging with the film commission, you're going to do a couple things. The first thing you're going to do is you're going to go to their websites and you're going to find who are all the vendors and production companies in your area. And you're going to send them your resume. And you're going to ask if they have an internship program, right? Generally, they're project based, so you'll come in, work on one particular project, and if they like you, they'll start talking about what the future steps are. The second thing you're going to do is really get an understanding of what productions come to town and when they are coming, and talk and do the same thing with the film commission, saying, hey, you're willing to intern on any production that comes to town with hopes that you can become a production assistant. Once you become a production assistant on your independent films, you instantly start gaining your set hours. As you move up into departments, those set hours become valuable because you might wind up on an independent film that is going to do what's called a tier zero um, agreement with the actual IATSE union. And what that tier zero agreement does, it allows non-union people to be grandfathered into the union once that particular project has been approved to become a signatory. So, your communication with the film commissions in your area is hugely important. Your communication with anyone that is making content is hugely important. The networking part of our business, honestly, is like 95% of it. 5% of it is you have to actually have done the job, have somewhat of a knowledge of protocols and terminology and hierarchy on the set itself. But beyond that, they have to like you. It's literally it literally is that simple because it's an art form that is collaborative. Social elements are very important, and your ability to be hungry enough to extend your hand is what most of us are going to be looking for. If we are finding you and coaxing you and asking you, then after a while we will lose our desire to mentor you, right? But as artists, it's almost a part of the industry to have mentorships, i.e., internships. Hope that helps.
let me jump in here. So, would you say, Marquette, the same holds true then in Chicago and Denver, and Miami? They should be looking for their film commission.
Yes, I would say it starts there. With Miami, you have a bilingual segment there, which is really amazing. And most of your network uh, for the Latino market uh, really encompasses international. So if you speak English and Spanish, there's tons of opportunities there for you, right? In terms of Colorado, independent films are made there, as well as a lot of action content. When I was in Fuel TV, we did a lot of production there. So there's always going to be that level of action sports that needs filming as well as editorial. There's also a lot of promo content made there as well. In Chicago, which I would say outside of New York and LA, really is like a massive market. There's tons of television production work, which is 9 months out the year of production. There's also obviously films are being shot there, tons of commercials are being shot there, and a lot of corporate headquarters are there. So their marketing departments are going to be positioned there as well. So that's how I would look at each of the markets. You still have to contact the film commission because ultimately, once you're ready, you want to get listed on the film commission's board, which is where content providers or producers find their actual labor from. So the film commission would be the first point of attack in terms of employment and things like that.
That's excellent. I know in Cleveland we use the film commission, but probably not enough. So for everybody on the call, really to focus in on that. And if you need help, if you're a current student or alumni, to reach out to Career Services for an extra hand if you need a hand on that. Marquette, it does look like there's some questions in the chat. Godiva, are you there? Let's see if I can find you. But I usually manages. She's really
I'm
very
here.
good.
You were doing great, so I let you roll with
Oh.
it. Tasha's on. Yeah, Godiva, she's there.
Oh,
You can unmute, or we can jump in and let you know the question.
okay. Well,
Give her a
um,
second.
yeah,
Okay.
Godiva says that she hails from Cleveland and she's looking to do a hip hop as a feature length motion film. Do you know how I can get started at the Playhouse or Karamu House, or is that a direction she should be on?
When you say get started, what exactly do you mean? Do you have a script?
We can unmute her. How did you see her?
She's here.
Oh, here
Hello.
she is. Yeah, yeah. Okay, good.
Well, I do have a script, a long time running script that I wrote based on a book I wrote in high school. It was a short story and then it evolved into a screenplay. And it just never got produced just because I was in high school and it was a little colorful. And at the time, my high school drama teacher felt it was lackluster, so I never really got the connection with Caramoo and things of that nature, just because I was not a drama major. When the drama majors, they had that connection, because they were just closer knit. I was an art major, so my connections were more so geared towards art. Then I went to creative writing, and I graduated as a creative writing major. So me, my skill was writing, and they taught me everything from the perspectives of a writer. So I did the workshops, with the film directors and everything. But I really didn't break in much except music became my wheelhouse because I sang. So that's why I was like, okay, let me turn this into a musical, since I know I sing and I rap a little bit.
So if
And
it's a
that was.
musical, then yeah, you would if it's a stage play, if it's a stage production, right? Then yeah.
Well, it's a film version. So it's like how Rent, like I typed it as a stage thing, and then I felt it would be better as a motion picture. Just to do the musical from that perspective, but I felt someone was telling me it would be better for me to try to practice musical theater and maybe try to caramel, but I don't know how to go about that. Because like I said, am still learning the business of entertainment as a whole. I finished.
Okay.
Oh,
Let's
sorry.
let
All right.
Let's let Marquette jump in a second. I think
Oh,
he's got a
sorry.
picture. No, no worries, honey. No
Thank
worries.
you.
Yeah. So I think that if it's a stage play, right? If you're trying to do the stage play part of it, then yes, you would try to get a playhouse like a Caramore or someone to produce it. How you would present it to them, the way you present content to any company is to write a query letter, basically,
Mhm.
that you would send over saying, this is what the project is, this is what I hope to achieve with the project. This is something that would interest you, and then if they like it, then they'll respond back and ask to read a few pages from the script. If they like that, then they'll ask to read the actual screenplay. In terms of films, it's somewhat the same thing, right?
Mhm.
They ask for a query, then that would turn into an ask for a synopsis, which would turn into asking to get the script to do coverage on it. Depending on how the coverage went, then they would ask to take a meeting. So the on the question really is the script ready, right? And so I say
Right.
that because
Well,
go
what I was told by more than one audience, as old as time from the beginning when I was working with Dr. Miller, to edit the script from its, like I said, humble beginnings where the characters were not developed and the story was not as evolved as it is now. I was told that it needed a broader audience and that it needed to be less marginalized. Because I wrote it, based in Cleveland and, based on the art school I came from and all the experiences I was having in high school. But they were saying, he was saying to me, it was a panel, and they were saying that,
are are those people on the panel screenwriters? Because it don't sound.
yes, they're screenwriters, filmmakers. Dr. Miller graduated from NYU, and he was my high school teacher. Then you had the one guy from Case who
Taja,
majored in musical
I'm
theater.
sorry.
I'm
Taja,
sorry.
I'm sorry to cut you off.
Uh,
I do want to get to some of the other questions, and this one is just so very specific to you.
Yeah,
I think Marquette gave you a little bit of a broad, direction that might also help other people on this call, but I don't want to go too far down this
oh, sorry.
path. You know what I mean? But Marquette's going to give his information, and you certainly can, I'm sure
yeah,
reach out to him with some additional questions that
yes.
might help you kind of plan your pathway a little bit more. But I do want to move on to some other questions. Okay.
I would
Okay,
say enter
that's
enter the screenplay into screenplay contests.
yes, yes.
Screenplay contests. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yep.
okay. That's
It's just
great.
one of those things where I was in the
Taja,
company
I'm gonna have to
for a
mute
long
you
term,
because I'm
just
gonna
didn't work.
Yeah.
Taja, I'm sorry. I did mute you. I have to go on to the next question, okay? Because we spent a lot of time on that one. I'm sorry. CJ does ask a question in the chat. CJ, you want to jump in or you want me to ask it? He does say to become a part of a film union, do you have to intern first and get grandfathered in, or can you pay dues and join that way? Does that question make sense to you, Marquette?
Yes,
Okay,
you have to intern, then pay dues. You have to intern, then get set hours, then become eligible to get into the union, and then you have to pay to be in the union.
gotcha. So interning really is the best way to get into the union, or the only way, maybe.
Well, it's the only way to
Okay,
get into the industry. You still have to
yeah.
do the independent films first to get into the union. There's no way around the independent part.
Can I
Because you have
ask you a
to,
quick, oh, I'm sorry, quick
no, I was
question.
just
I'm
gonna say
sorry,
because you have to
Clara.
accrue so many hours. Is that why?
Well, yeah, because
Okay,
it's like surgery, right? If you've never done it, I don't want you cutting on my film,
right.
right?
Yes,
Amen.
You know
absolutely.
what I mean? Once you're in the union, you have certain rights. And so they have to know that you can proficiently do the job. I think that the key to understand what we pay for in our industry, we pay for proficiency. You must be an artist to even be here. No one is paying you to be an artist. We're paying you to be proficient at the art that you have chosen. In order to be proficient, you have to have tons of experience, hands on, real time in life, which is going to be on independent projects that need you versus a Marvel movie. They're not going to take a risk on you. At best, you get to be a PA. And even the PA on a Marvel movie has experience.
That's great.
Can,
Thank you.
Can
Well
I
then,
take that, Hood? I'm going to take that one level up
yeah.
because I know, for an example, when the LeBron movie was here in Cleveland and they were really trying to scurry to find people to work on the set, that we did get a call here. And so for our students or graduates, they wouldn't be in the union. They weren't in the union, but they could
Right.
go to work on the set. Could you just talk about that briefly, like how that comes about?
Well, that's an independent film, right? So
Oh,
independent
okay.
film. So
Okay.
the best part about being in Cleveland is that if you're in the union, you can work on independent projects, which means that the union is incredibly flexible. So when they don't have enough labor, they allow non-union people to be on set.
I
That's
see.
why it's important that you have that experience. You can go on there and know what they're talking about, know how it moves, know how everything on the set actually functions and works.
Excellent. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, and we've got a couple hands up. Is this a good time to kind of roll right into Q&A, or did you want to continue on anything you were talking about, Marquette?
Q&A is great.
All right, perfect. Tyshell, you want to jump in with your question?
What up, Marquette?
Hey, Tom, how are you?
Okay, so my question is like, so my passion is hosting. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm gonna do that audition with Summer Jam, but we've been doing the voice 1, 2, 3s, which you told me I should get into, which is cool. But it's like, can you pick as many jobs with the voice 1, 2, 3s, or do you want to just try to focus on a couple and then see what happens with those?
All right. So one of the things that we're talking about, there's an app called Voice 123, and I recommend it because you guys are all taking radio. So you can easily record your voice, which means that you can easily do narrations or voiceover work for film, TV, or commercials. And so producers go to Voice 123 and pick voiceover talent. Right. So I would say, obviously, what is needed is diversity, right? And so as you pick things, um, the first thing is to pick things that are for, a female, things that are for preferably some form of minority, right? Because that lessens who you have to compete with, right?
Okay. Yeah.
After that, then it's brand association, right? What are the brands that you actually know? So if there seems like, oh, they're doing an energy drink, I drink energy drinks, I watch all the energy drink commercials, then try that as well. Um, I'm big on, in the beginning, I'm big on quantity because, it's like throwing a pebble into Lake Erie, right?
Right.
So you got to keep throwing them to make as many waves as possible, in my opinion, to show the versatility of your voice and your talent, right? And then knowing you, it's different because I know you, so
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, you should definitely do a few of them because I've seen you change your voice to like 5 different types of voices. You know what I'm saying? And you have like international people that know you and know that voice. So I
Right.
think that it behooves you to try as many as possible. Hope that answers your question.
It does. Thank you. See you this week.
See you this week.
Awesome, thank you. All right, next we have Deshandre.
Yes, how you doing? How you doing? I had 2 questions I wanted to ask.
Mhm.
All right, the first question was I missed like the benefits you said about Cleveland. Like I had came in late. I thought you was gonna be in person. I was at the school, and I had
Oh,
came
wow.
in late, and I didn't. I missed out, and I was trying to write them down. Like the couple of little quick, you give me a little quick things that you said about Cleveland on the benefits of film, because I wanted to be in the film industry. I'm trying to.
Well, I
Yeah,
think
and sorry, I was just gonna jump in to just remind Deshandre and anyone else that maybe missed part of the beginning. This is being
yeah.
recorded, so you absolutely will have the YouTube link probably by the end of the week so that you can go back in and listen to everything that Marquette said. So if you missed anything, don't worry about it because we will get to it. Absolutely. I'm sorry, Marquette. Go ahead and jump in if you wanted to say add something.
Well, just in general, if you look at it, historical economics, right? Um, the demographic that the school serves, right, which is going to be working class people, people of color, women, people who are doing career changes, right? If you look historically, when any industry had a deficiency on labor, uh, that group that working class and minority and female group were able to gain access, gain money, gain really success because of that shortage. So the state of Ohio only has 350, maybe 375 people in the union itself. So there's a labor shortage in the state itself for the film and TV industry. I don't exactly know how that is in the radio side of things, but on our side, there's definitely a shortage, particularly for below the line labor, right? And I think that's important to identify that as well.
Perfect. Thank you. Deshandre, I muted you just because there was a lot of feedback, but did you have a second question you said?
Yes, and I didn't go to school or nothing for writing, but I got a couple of like I call them movie strips, but I know I didn't set them up right like a movie strip. I just wanted to know how long does a movie strip supposed to be?
First thing you want to do is you want to go online and download Celtics, which is CELTX, and I believe it is .com. And that's a free screenwriting program, which will allow you to have the correct format, right? So once you have the correct format of a screenplay, then it's generally 1 page per minute. So if you're doing a feature film, it needs to be around 90 pages, preferably no more than 120 pages. If you're doing a documentary, um, you might not have it totally scripted, but you might be dealing with an outline with a 3-act structure. That's going to be about 60 minutes to be feature length. If you're doing a TV show, if it's a half-hour episodic, it's 22 or 30, right? And if it's an hour episodic, it's either 44 pages or 60. 60 being cable, 44 being network TV.
Awesome.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot.
That's perfect. Thank you. And I'm sure that's great for others on this call to know because as you're writing a script, it's good to know that you're putting it in the right format. So thank you for that. Vanessa, I see your hand up. You want to jump in with your question?
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Vanessa, also known as Ms. V from 63 from the Illinois, Chicago IMS. Once a week, we do just a group setting platform for It's the Vibe for Me show. And my hopes is to one day have my own entertainment business because I've been working in various communities since the early 80s. Now I'm at the point where I wanted to learn the background part of putting together entertainment pieces, hosting shows and special events and things. Where would it be a good place for me to start in Chicago to register in the entertainment business?
I need a little more information. So let me ask you a couple questions. So when you say entertainment, are you creating content or are you doing
Yeah.
live shows?
Well, myself, I do different characters as well as the show consists of a group of us from the school having the same energy and vibe with one another. And what we do is we use the platform to showcase other gifts and talents from other people. They come in once a week and we film them. We've been filming everything, but we haven't put together the shows. We just been filming everything to try to piece everything together.
So for the show idea, right? Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you would need to edit it together.
Okay.
If you were trying to solicit, or which is basically trying to sell it to distributors or let's say your local cable provider, you would need to make a 3-minute sizzle reel of the
Make
show.
3 minute sizzle.
Mhm. Make,
Okay.
make a 3-minute sizzle reel, and then you're going to do what's called a production Bible. What that
Production.
production Bible does is break down the show characters, uh,
Uh-huh.
a brief synopsis of the show, as well as the episodes. So let's say that your show is 13 episodes, then you would explain what those 13 episodes are.
Okay.
And that's usually 13 3-sentence paragraphs. So they're not very long,
You
right?
need 3 sentence paragraph.
Right. So, the pilot is all about Johnny and Susie fall in love, they break up, and Johnny catches Susie on a dating app.
Okay.
Episode 1. Episode 2, Susie goes on her blind date from the dating app, and it's Johnny, and they are basically back in love again. But now Johnny has a stalker from the dating app. Episode 3. You get what I'm saying? So you have
Right.
to break it down like that. You would take that Bible, you'd send that over with your sizzle reel, and you would present that to anyone looking to platform your product.
Okay. Sounds great. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, thank you. Nestor, I see your hand up. You want to jump in with your question?
Hi, yes, can you hear me okay?
You can.
Hi, yes. So I had a question. If I wanted to be like actor, writer, director, producer, do you have any advice on that or what market I should focus on? I'm from the Lombard campus, I'm a graduate from there.
Um, those are a lot of hats to wear at one time. So the first thing I would say is, which one do you like the most, right? And kind of focus on that. If you like acting the most, then I would start off by trying to act as much as possible. Same scenario, finding what productions are going on in your area and trying to get yourself on those productions. Even if you're not playing a lead character, try to play a supporting character, right? If it's, you don't necessarily look at acting that way, but you really love directing or producing or writing, then it's going to be about actually making some content, right? If you're making narrative content that you're going to act in, narrative meaning that you're writing it from scratch, right? Documentary or mockumentary being something completely different. From a narrative standpoint, then you would either A, start creating something that's reoccurring, like on your Instagram feed or YouTube, or B, start working with groups of people to get their works done along with your works. C, just become an influencer and slowly work your way into acting. So it just depends on which routes you want to take, because they're kind of two different routes.
Okay.
Fantastic. Does that help, Nestor?
Yeah, I was just wondering, like, is there like a certain market? Because I know you're in Cleveland and I'm more like in Chicago. Like, do you think is there a certain market I should focus on, like, or do you think I can get some good work out here or like somewhere else in the country, or I don't know. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, Chicago's a great market. It's a big market. It's a traditional market. It's been there a long time. So I would say first thing you want to do is master that market before you go to another one, right? If you're going to be an actor, especially, there's so many amazing acting groups there and theater companies there that you could be involved in that have launched the careers of tons of actors. So acting requires complete submission. So if you're going to be an actor, you have to completely submit to that, which means that you're going to get a job probably waiting tables or someplace with a lot of flexibility. And you're just going to try to get some really good headshots and go on as many auditions as you can as soon as possible.
I'm going to jump in a quick second, Marquette, because I think you say such a valuable point. Everything takes time, right? Like, so you come in and it's foundational, and it takes time to build, and you have to be persistent. But I mean, I think the super cool thing about time is if you start, a month from now, it's going to look different, right? 6 months, it'll look different. A year from now, it'll look a lot different. But if you don't start, like really put it down, commit yourself to what you're starting, you don't have a plan. And a man without a plan isn't going anywhere. So,
Agree.
time seems so scary. And you could talk about this a little bit, but how fast does it go, right? It moves along pretty quickly. Maybe talk about that for a minute.
Well, the first thing I would say is I go back to having a development deal and what it did for me as an artist. The school's giving you that same thing. Right now, you have a development deal. How much are you leveraging that? Are you only at school when they require you to be there? Are you only logging on online while you lay in bed? You know what I mean? How serious are you taking this opportunity? Because they're giving you equipment, they're giving you facilities, they're giving you access, right? And they're giving you support. So the first thing I say to everyone is that make sure that you are utilizing that campus and that equipment and those people, the resources that they're giving you to the best of your ability, first and foremost. Because when you leave there, Not only should you have uh, the credentials that you gained from each class, but you should have a greater experience as a human being in terms of teamwork, production, your own personal outlook. Right? If you're just turning this stuff in as homework and you're not really dialing in to make your life better and to build your portfolio with this opportunity, then you're going to miss the opportunity. And then when you finish school, you're going to kind of have to restart again. And so part of this process is to build your teams, which Miss V talked about that. I think that's important. I think another part of it is to utilize this time while you're at school to build the things that you want to do with your career, not just during the time that you have class, but during those off hours. And that's really when the work is done. And that's when you really see how committed you are to what you want to do. My students know that that's part of my biggest thing is what are you doing on your own?
Excellent. Thank you so much. Does anybody have any questions around that or thoughts on that? Marcinda, did I get your name right,
Yeah. Hi.
Marcinda? Yeah.
Yes. Hi, everybody. How do you
Hello.
build? How do you build a portfolio?
Okay, well, first thing it starts with assuming that you're talking about a visual portfolio, it would start with filming things. And let's say that you don't have any clients that will hire you yet. So then you make up the stuff that you want your clients to see, right? So if you want to be a news broadcaster, then you need to go outside and start giving on the field news broadcasts, right? From every event that's near you. If you want to be a writer, then you need to write projects and then have people or production companies or teams make those projects. If you're so once you get to making stuff, then you take those things and you put them together and that becomes your portfolio. It's a portfolio, but it really is called a reel. We call them reels. No one's going to ask you for your resume. No one's going to ask for those things. They're going to ask for your reel. Right now, in the beginning, when you don't have a reel, you give them your resume, and that embodies places that you've worked. But if you're going to be a creative department head, meaning that you are a editor or a director or a writer or a producer or talent, they will want to see it. Right? The assumption is if you've gotten this far, you have the resume part. It's really can you do the art in the way that particular company likes in their brand, right? So that's how you get your portfolio. Start making stuff.
And
Okay.
I
And
think
then,
I think you
10
touched
minutes
on
left.
a great point, Marquette, because so many of our students, as they're getting ready to graduate, they worry about that that final piece, that reel, because maybe they don't have a lot of content or they don't have someone that's already asking them to do something. So I think what you say is so important. Just make it up, like
Yeah.
write some things down, find some current events, go to the park, go to that school, stand outside and do some news reports. And I think that's really important to start building early on. And we tell them, and maybe you can kind of confirm or not, but the projects that they're doing in school, those should be part of your reel. And then with every project, as you improve your skills, you should be taking things out and adding those new projects in. And that's kind of, at least as they're starting out, how we've kind of suggested. Do you think that's a good path or a good way to start doing that?
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know if you're, I don't even, I mean, taking things out. I don't even know if you should be taking things out, right?
Well,
If it
you
looks
know what I
really
mean,
good,
though, but
right?
like
Yeah, no, I know.
replacing, updating, yes.
I'm totally teasing you. No, I would say that anything that you work on should go on your reel, particularly if it's creditable. Um, I go back to, are you being creative in class? You see, when those assignments are given out, are you putting your best foot forward as an artist? Or are you just doing enough to get the grade? What I find, and I'm going to be frank because that's just how I am as a person, what I find is that a lot of people treat it like high school where they just turn their work in. What we're trying to get you guys to do is to put some funk into it and make it rock. You know what I mean? Really go there with it. Really be creative. Really try. Like, it's not about what we like. It's not about what we like. There was a young man named Diff. And we go into class, and he is clearly funny. He is clearly a hilarious human being. And everyone's getting ready to do their news reports. And I say to him, you better come with something. If you come in here and just give me plain old Don Lemon, I'm not going to be happy, right? And he came with this wannabe Trump wig on and Trump mustache, and he put together an idea of what he would do if he had his own show. And that had great merit, and that should be on his reel. And people will pay attention to that because it's so creative. So I encourage you guys to look at every assignment from a creative side of it, not so much the deadline of doing the work, but more so, how funky can I make this? How cool can I make it, right? That's what goes on your reel. And that's why people hire you. They hire you because what you make looks cool. It's literally
Yeah.
that simple.
I want to get to Jacqueline, but just one last thing about the reel. Is there somewhere they should be posting it? Because, obviously you can't send an attachment, especially as a video, to someone. So do you have any suggestions on where they should be kind of storing that or providing that digital reel, I guess?
It's a weird thing. So most of our reels are in our signatures, and they're based on them being requested. That's why the query letter is important, right? So let's say you're coming out of school and you want to produce on-air content. You would start with a query letter, and you would have in your body of your deal a link. I tend to keep them on Vimeo, mainly because Vimeo is more of an industry standard, right? A lot of people use YouTube. That's nothing wrong with that. Just me personally, I do Vimeo, right? So you can house it ultimately on LinkedIn, right? That's where industry people communicate, is on LinkedIn, right? So you want to have a nice LinkedIn page with kind of your resume and links to your work. And when you do or create things, you kind of want to post them on LinkedIn. Maybe not as frequent as you would Facebook, but it is a place for industry professionals. So most of our communication for jobs outside of some form of representation occurs on LinkedIn.
Perfect. Thank you. We are running out of time, but Jacqueline's had her hand up for quite some time. So I want to make sure, Jacqueline, you have a chance to ask your question. Go ahead and jump in. Jacqueline Johnson, are you still there?
Yes.
There you are. Go ahead and ask your question.
Hi. Thank you. Yes. I'm a graduate from the Film Emphasis in Cincinnati, and I'm interested in doing more editing. How does one get the opportunity to do that, even though I'm doing it, but it's like I want to do more, especially with movies and shows and things of that nature.
Okay, so a couple things. Number one would be based on your reel. You're going to go into those jobs probably trying to be an assistant editor first. And the reason why is the editor is kind of at the discretion of whoever's creatively in charge, right? So I use my editor no matter what, because that's my editor. Do you get what I'm saying? So you come in as an assistant editor, which supports other editors, and that's going to give you a chance to move around, hoping to find an editor that likes you, or a producer or a director that likes you, and will slowly work you up into the editing position. Editing, assuming you're talking about offline editorial, which is assembly, versus online editorial, which is polishing and color, right? So the first thing you would do is contact your film commission, and then you would look for any post-production houses there, right? Any marketing firms or PR firms, right? Most places that film that deal in that nature are going to have a ton of content that they need editors for. Then I would also post myself on like Indeed, LinkedIn, specifically in places like LA, Chicago, New York, Miami, because they're going to have lots of content and not a lot of editors. Hope that answers your question.